Reddit takes legal action over data scraping, France could soon be slapping warning labels on ultra-fast fashion ads, and we're asking, is your phone really listening to you? Welcome to the Privacy-Led Marketing Show, where we connect the dots between what's trending and what it means for the future of marketing. I'm Kirsty.
And I'm Adelina.
And stick around because we've got our legal expert Barbara back to keep us out of trouble. First up, Reddit is lawyering up against Anthropic, the AI startup, for allegedly nabbing Reddit posts to train its shiny new Claude models, all without a licensing deal. Basically, this is the digital equivalent of raiding your neighbour's fridge and then selling the snacks back to them. It's not the first time the AI startup has been sued over alleged copyright infringement. Last year, authors sued Anthropic for scraping books, and Universal Music came for them over song lyrics. Now Reddit's following suit and telling Anthropic to back off. Reddit suing Anthropic might sound like yet another copyright case, but here's the twist marketers should care about. France's data regulator just published new guidance on when scraping personal data for AI training crosses the legal line under GDPR, and that's what changes the game. Adelina, this is a crazy time for lawsuits at the moment. We've also seen Disney and Universal go after Midjourney, so lots going on in the courts at the moment. How do you think this is really going to impact marketers?
I'm not here to comment as a lawyer, just as a marketer. The way I think as a marketer when I have a business to run, it's that the content that I put up there online is going to be used in all sorts of shapes and forms. So I encourage other marketers to think about like what you have out there can be reused, including by AI. And honestly, in our case at Usercentrics, we see a lot of customers coming from AI searches, chatting with AI. So that's obviously taken from the kind of content we have online or in other medias like reviews and so on. And that's serving us well. Now, of course, if you have copyrights, and that's like a different angle, but again, as a marketer, considering your general content, I think you should be aware and actually want to optimize for most of your content to be easily searchable by AIs, because we are seeing more and more users, customers, shoppers actually using AI to find you and maybe go less to your website and more interact with your content through this, let's call it, third party.
Yeah, and a lot of marketers are using data scraping to further their products.
Yeah.
So is this just growing pains?
Probably. Again, I don't know how it is from a legal perspective, but definitely we're going to see the battle of the different AIs and the different big techs out there, trying to kind of see who can use what. And of course, the more information you have for AI that you can scrape and so on, the better it is. So I think we're going to see a lot of this in the coming years until some AIs will get really, really developed, and depends by who. And yeah, it's get your popcorn moment in the world of digital.
It's a balancing act, isn't it, between wanting the new next thing and being efficient and fast, but also being legally compliant.
Being ethical, being compliant, it's important. Like, you have to respect people's data. If you have your own customer database, you have to respect if you have like trademarks of sorts, not to use it. And I think ultimately as marketers, we never really want to go, across the border of ethical, but in many cases we use tools without knowing how they are being implemented or what they use. And I've seen many marketers wanting to do what we call ethical marketing, but being limited to the way the digital world works. So that's where we want to drive at Usercentrics this path of ethical marketing, working with the entire ecosystem to make as much as possible things being properly done, so that both users and marketers are more in control around the methods that are being used around data and information in general.
Yeah, I think this story is just a bit of a wake-up call that where you get your data really does matter.
Absolutely.
But for now, let's talk some more French laws, that is. France is set to become the first country to regulate ultra-fast fashion ads, with a new bill banning influencer promotions and requiring warning labels on ads for platforms like Shein and Temu. The bill targets companies uploading thousands of new items a day, not just traditional fast fashion. If passed, it'll be no more influencer haul videos for ultra-fast fashion, warning labels about environmental impact on ads and listings, and eco-contributions of up to €10 a day by 2030, funding recycling infrastructure. Now, Adelina, I never thought I'd see the day where there'd be warning ads on fast fashion. I thought that was purely for tobacco, but the French, they're quite good at starting trends. So do we think this is going to go on in other countries?
It's the fashion of the fashion, or fashion of advertising. I actually have to admit I love this, maybe more as a user and as a inhabitant of this planet. And as marketer, I think it might be a bit like a new thing to get used to in the beginning, but ultimately this is how we provide transparency to our shoppers and customers. And I think that's invaluable. Like what we notice in a lot of research that we've done, research papers that we commissioned, is that people really value transparency. We do it mostly from the perspective of data, but also like the products that you have, what was the process. People care more than ever, and that's on the rise. So we notice that the more transparency they have, the more they trust the brand. So I think minus the growing pains, this should be like a very big plus for marketers. And I actually recommend it in general for as many other products as possible.
Yeah, definitely, because it gives the choice back to the consumers, right? If they want to go and buy that, they've got all the transparency they need to know. By the way, this episode is brought to you by Usercentrics, and if you're still sending all your marketing data client-side, it's time to modernize. Server-side tagging from Usercentrics gives you control, precision, and privacy compliance all in one move, so hit the link below to learn more. Last year, leaked reports suggested that some apps could be using software to tune into what you're saying, even when you're not talking to your phone. The scandal broke last September after an investor presentation revealed that Cox Media Group was promoting active listening software to clients and investors. Companies like Meta deny they're secretly recording conversations, but in April, they quietly removed options to stop voice recordings from being stored. And now they've confirmed they'll be using those clips to train AI, like in Meta's Ray-Bans. So if you feel paranoid, maybe that's because you have a right to be. So Adelina, how do we deal with all of this? I do think my phone might be a secret agent. It's waiting for me to spill some office gossip.
I think as well, like there were countless of times where I would have a coffee conversation with a friend and I would see very on point ads. Sometimes they are useful, sometimes it's like, what?
Yeah.
I know that's a possibility. I tried to search it. And of course, as marketers, we always like the possibility to target the most specific people that are interested in something and so on. But then it comes with its costs, right? Like what are we actually using? What's in the black box? And again, like I talked to quite a few marketers and everyone wants to do the ethical marketing thing, right? But they don't have control over the methods. All they can do is like choose the kind of target based on behavior, interest, and so on. It's just some check boxes. Now the methods are sometimes unclear, sometimes more clear, but I think an ecosystem where marketers will have more choice, or first of all more awareness and then more choice on what they're doing, is going to be better. And overall the whole ecosystem is evolving a lot with respect to people's data collection, data measurement, how they want their data to be used, like what are their preferences. I think initially was by regulations, then it was tech companies also embracing, some of them, more and more of this, like giving people the choice. And now marketers are the ones waking up to being, hey, I actually want to do the right thing. And like, can I have control over this as well? Marketers can demand this just like consumers demand their data rights. And we are a firm believer in making this as much as possible a viable way. I would also point out that when it comes to consent management platforms like the one we use, like obviously the most known one is the web one, where you see the banners for like what kind of data a website can collect and so on. But there is also a CMP equivalent for apps. And this is very important for marketers if you have an app to actually add this in there, because again, you give users choices, and that transparency and control that you give them builds a better brand and more trust with your company. So we've seen that being very valuable for users up to the point where they would buy more or they would subscribe more to different things. And we have a lot of research papers that show this. But this is very important because an app in your phone can actually record where you are, with who you are, conversations, what other apps you have installed. So every app maker has access to this data and it can be used. So if you have an app and you give people this choice with the consent management platform, that's already showing them that you care, that you give them the choices, and that can build much more trust and hence also help you grow the business. There is this older saying that compliance, it's against company growth, like performance, but that's not true. Actually, like we noticed that giving people choice and transparency, it's what actually helps with increasing performance, selling more, and so on.
Yeah, that's so interesting because people are already suspicious. So a lot of people do believe that the phones are listening to them, even though it's not been proven. proven. So it maybe is time to offer the choice and build the trust back and help brands get to where they need to be.
And that's a good point. I think by default, everyone now thinks probably the worst. So if you show that you do things in a better way, that's already like a big plus.
Totally, yeah. And if you're wondering how governments are responding to all this surveillance, especially for young people, well, they're hitting back. Governments are starting to draw hard lines, especially when it comes to how platforms collect and use data from teens and children. From the FTC in the US to full-on bans in Australia, things are moving really fast. Hi, Barbara. So a lot's changing, but what's new and how's it going to impact marketers?
Hi, Kirsty. So, across the world, a digital shift is underway, and children are at the center of it. Country after country is moving to curb how children interact with social media, either by banning access altogether or cracking down on how platforms handle their data. In Denmark, Digital Minister Caroline Stage Holsen has publicly stated that she does not believe children under 15 should be on today's social media platforms. She cites addictive designs, data harvesting, and the failure to take down harmful or illegal content, despite EU rules under the Digital Services Act. Denmark, which assumes the rotating presidency of the Council of the EU on July 1st, has joined 6 other EU countries in urging the European Commission to do more to protect minors online.
France is obviously the topic we've been talking about today. What are they doing about this?
Well, Kirsty, France is moving fast. President Emmanuel Macron recently announced that if no action is taken at the EU level through an harmonized rule, France will impose its own national ban on social media use for children under 15. His government is now extending age verification requirements to a broader range of platforms that fail to comply with safety standards. In the United States, a major overhaul of children's data privacy rules just took effect. On June 23rd, the Federal Trade Commission's new Copper Rule amendments became law, expanding protections for kids under 13 and tightening how companies handle their data. Under the new rule, the definition of personal information now includes biometric data, like facial scans, DNA, or voice prints, and government-issued IDs, such as social security numbers or passports. Operators must now provide parents with much more detailed notices, including how their child's data will be used and which third parties it will be shared with.
Is there anything else about this new rule that we need to know?
Well, the new rule also introduces new ways to confirm parental consent, like government ID checks, secure knowledge-based quizzes, or verified text messages, and gives parents the option to allow data collection but block sharing with third parties unless absolutely necessary for the service. These policy changes across Europe and the US indicate a significant shift in how brands can legally reach young audiences. Stricter age verification, higher digital consent thresholds, and expanded definitions of personal information mean that targeting children and teens is becoming not just a strategic challenge, but also a legal one. The current framework suggests that access to underage users could become more limited and heavily regulated. Even where platforms still allow minors, marketers could face new constraints on data use. Behavioral tracking, interest-based targeting, and third-party sharing are now subject to tighter rules or outright bans. In practice, these could push marketers towards safer, non-personalized content strategies or shift youth-focused campaigns towards parent-facing messaging, educational content, or verified platforms with compliant frameworks.
Thank you, Barbara. Now for a privacy curveball. WhatsApp, the app that once screamed no ads, is bringing paid advertising and subscriptions to the world's most popular messaging platform. WhatsApp once had no ads, no data trails, just encrypted chats, but now Meta's introducing ads and subscriptions and personalized targeting across platforms. If you just use WhatsApp for the chats and the voice notes, you're safe for now, but soon in the Updates tab where statuses and channels live, ads are coming. So Adelina, how do marketers tread the line between making some money but making sure the product stays as the users want it?
Yeah, that's the fine line. On one hand, as a marketer, you're always happy to tap into one more channel, one more possibility to advertise on a new channel. So from this perspective, Sure, it's nice. But then you also need to put yourself in the shoes of the user and just try to not provide the creepy experience, especially in the beginning when people are not used to this, because then you can be too invasive, too whatever. Like, it's not necessarily that you don't respect people's privacy, but just make sure that you provide an ad experience that's relevant to the channel and to the channel newness. And as per usual, when you are one of the first marketers, first campaigns that go into this, and you have like a very good example that can be like a role model for the rest, but then just pushing it too much because it's possible, like it requires always like a bit of strategic thinking and not just like tap, tap, click, click, measure, measure. So I think this thinking is really important to be like a dual hat. I'm a marketer, but I'm also a user. And yeah, what makes me tick.
Yeah, because definitely it built its brand on being completely airtight, and now we're seeing the kind of inflow of ads and everything. So people may be put off at first, but what's interesting, you used the word creepy. If you're using WhatsApp connected with your Facebook, your Instagram, and your WhatsApp, that's an opportunity to get really detailed, really thorough ads because that's all our social media platforms in one.
And I've noticed before, right? Like they are interconnected. I don't know exactly what models it's being used, but for example, we spoke before about the microphone, because this all belongs to one company. Like when you look into your microphone settings, you can see that WhatsApp obviously it's using the microphone. You want to make calls and so on. So probably I don't know. It's might be distributed to all the other apps in the ecosystem. But again, it's on one hand understanding the possibilities, but then crafting like a very good experience that matters to this. And you can be relevant. You can do ads on WhatsApp and be relevant, but just mind the channel and the channel newness.
It's interesting because there's 3 billion users on WhatsApp worldwide. That's an incredible opportunity for them.
Yes, it's quite big indeed.
That's it for today, but be sure to subscribe so you can catch us at our next episode in just a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, you can leave a comment and share your ideas on what we've talked about today. Thank you so much, Adelina.
Thank you, Kirsty.